Hello and welcome to Behind the Bearcat. This is the podcast where the Northwest Missouri State University Career Services Office chats with Northwest faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends to hear about their career journeys, how they got to where they are, and how they became Bearcats. I'm Northwest Internship Coordinator Travis Klein.
And I'm Hannah Christian, Assistant Director of Career Services here at Northwest. And a very special wrap-up episode we have here, hailing originally from East St. Louis, Illinois, Dr. Clarence Green, who has a Bachelor of Science in Sociology and a Master's degree in Higher Ed Leadership, both from Northwest, who is currently the VP of Culture, as well as Chief of University Police, and has been at Northwest for 4 years.
24, 25.
Yeah. Join me in welcoming Clarence Green, Dr. Clarence Green.
Welcome.
I like that. Dr. Clarence Green. Welcome, Dr. Clarence Green.
Thank you, guys. I am honored to be here. I'm so excited to be a part of this. I've watched all of your episodes. I love going back on YouTube and watching those and just learning more about you guys as well as your guests.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that. We've had a great time and we've learned a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing. People even that we work with, like we interviewed Jill, our boss that we work with every day. And it's amazing. Even someone you work very closely with, you learn so much about them just having a conversation like this. So.
Yes.
All right. So no pressure here, but this is going to be our wrap up episode for season 2. So,
Excellent.
Bring the fire.
I'm going to do my best.
All right. So let's just go right. Let's rewind all the way back to little Clarence Green. And we'll just start at the very beginning. So you're from East St. Louis.
Yes, ma'am.
Talk to me about growing up. Tell me, all the way up to your very first paid job.
Okay. Well, I grew up my very first paid job started really as a young kid. I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois. I was a typical kid. I love to be outdoors. Love participating in neighborhood things. As a young kid, I probably was a little bad. I was a bad kid. I participated in probably some bad neighborhood things because in our you don't know as a young kid and growing up in a metropolitan area what really is a bad thing. A lot of things is represented by the street that you grow up on. And so my street that I grew up on was I lived on 34th in College, but grew up on Alhammer Court, and then there was it probably was a game for lack of better words, but you don't really know it, but it's your street and it's who you hang with. And the folks on that street or in that neighborhood become members of your organization and you just run around with those individuals. And so, but still at a very early age, I would work in neighbors' yards. I would remove trash. I would do house remodeling. Now I was not very skilled at all of those, but I would do them. I was more skilled at demolishing things, tearing them up. My dad was a local handyman, so he fixed cars. So I was changing transmissions on my back on the ground at a very young age, probably 12 years old. I could take transmissions out. I could help put them back in. My father would rebuild them. And so I've always been pretty handy with things. And so my father never paid me for those jobs. And so I learned a lot. Probably one of my greatest lessons as a young kid about money was when I was 12 years old. I wanted to play basketball. I wanted some basketball shoes. And I remember my father told me, figure out, it was like 15% off of these shoes. And my father said, if you figure those out, I'll buy them for you. Well, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out what it would come out to be in the price. And he didn't buy them for me. And in fact, he left me at the store, which was probably 25 miles from my home, and I had to walk home. So it was a double learned lesson. But ever since then, it made me think a lot about learning and understanding things and mastering things. It made me think more about finances and money and being responsible with it as well, so that you could get things that you needed or wanted to have. And so that was a crucial lesson that has stayed with me my entire life. And I've never forgot that moment. It really made me think hard about percentages. So that was a great lesson for me. And East St. Louis taught me a lot of lessons in life, a great community for me to grow up in, gave me numerous experiences, numerous opportunities to learn and participate in team type activities, whether that was learning or athletics or academics. I had a lot of opportunities to learn a lot of different things, which gave me a lot of experiences that I still use in this life. I was really fortunate and blessed, I think, to grow up where I did in the area in which I did, because a lot of those things I learned, I still use to today.
Fun fact, Clarence. I don't think I've ever shared this before, so we'll just let it all hang out on this Friday on our final podcast. I was also the leader of my neighborhood gang, Clarence.
Now, I wasn't the leader.
I was the leader. I mean, we had a smaller neighborhood. You know, we grew up in rural Missouri, but we burned the neighbor's playhouse down whenever I was 6 years old. Yeah, 7 years old.
What's the statute's limitation on arson, Clarence?
There is none. So we would be looking into. We were not that bad.
We were smoking cigarettes in the neighbor's yard and burned the playhouse down. You know, I was probably 8 years old, maybe. So yeah, we got some stories back there too.
On the season finale.
That's pretty cool.
All the lessons, all the learning, it comes from. It's good insight though. Different backgrounds. Those backgrounds definitely influence who we are today.
Yes, totally agree.
So, what was your first paid job? If your dad didn't pay you?
Well, my first paid job was it was probably I worked for a guy named Gigi, who owned a series of liquor stores, and I would break bottles and break the glass up and scoop it up and put it in barrels. We would sell those barrels of glass for $1, and he paid me like 50 cents an hour. But before that, I actually worked for a guy named, his name was Buster, and there was Big Mike. They were two brothers, and they did like they sold stuff. It would be like Maryville Swap Shop right now. They sold stuff that was like secondhand things. We would go get things. We would clean out old houses. When people got foreclosed on, and they would move all their stuff outside, they would make me go over there and load it up in a truck for them. And they paid me 25 cents an hour. And they were some local hooligans. You know, I was really intimidated by them. And I remember when Gigi offered me a job for 50 cents an hour, I had to tell them I was quitting because of the higher wages. I remember I was so scared. I remember I was crying when I told them, and they really just talked me up like, oh, you're a good worker. We probably should have paid you more. We'll make that money. But anytime we need you, you got to come back. So I was making big wages, 25 to 50 cents an hour.
Yeah, you just doubled your income.
Yes, yeah. But it was both of them were different work, but I learned a lot through doing them. And probably my first job where I got paid, I was a custodian in the summertime when I was in junior high for our school district. And then I did that for a number of years. I did that until I graduated high school, as well as I worked parking cars for the Cardinals baseball team in St. Louis, Missouri. Interesting thing about that is I couldn't drive a stick shift until I was probably 25, 26 years old. But I had to drive a stick shift at 16. I feel sorry for some of those cars I drove.
Good thing you knew how to change the transmission then. So.
I'm sure I ruined a few.
Did you have any inclination that you were going to be working in law enforcement when you were a kid?
Yeah, I had some interesting role models around me. There was a young man named Boone Anderson, who was our local police chief. And his dad was named Clarence, who was named after my great-grandfather, Clarence. And I'm Clarence Green, Jr., who's my dad. My dad and his dad worked together and ran a business, a mechanic shop. And so this guy was very influential in my life, Boone Anderson, which would have been Clarence Anderson's son. And so I knew early on that I had an interest in law enforcement. It was something that I thought I was passionate about. I saw a very bad death when I was a young kid. A person got shot and killed in front of my house, and the police responded. And I remember when the one police officer jumped out and ran up there, another police officer said, "Son, sit back down. You know, it's easier to work a murder rather than an assault, so just let the guy die." And that's always played a part in my life to think about service. And I thought that was poor service. So I always wanted to think about how can you serve a community so that it may be harder to work an assault, but we're going to save someone's life. You know, and so I think about taking on a life of service, doing the things that are hard to do, but are right to do. And so that's always been my style and the value that I have. And so early on, I knew that was probably something I wanted to do for those reasons, because I wanted to be a better police officer to serve folks in the way I thought policing should be done. And I didn't think that was very effective.
So how did you make your college decision? So you're a custodian at the school district,
Yep.
right? How'd you decide to go to college? How did you choose your college? How did you end up at Northwest?
Yeah, it was uh, all my life I've hung around a lot of older folks, and so kind of a little bit of an old soul. I knew my only opportunity to do something special would be to perhaps go off to college, but also go off to college at a different location than those that I hung around with in high school because of peer pressure, impressions. In all my life, I've been kind of put in positions of leadership, and I knew that if I hung around some folks that I had hung around with my whole life, it was easy for me to either try to defend them or be talked into something that's probably not going to end well for me. And then I knew early on in my community it was a very big thing if you were a college graduate. So I only knew one person who had ever graduated college. And within our community of roughly 150,000 folks, there was this one young man who had graduated college. Everybody in my community knew him. And aspirationally, they thought different. They had some different access to different things, and they were more of a change agent within our community. And so I saw that, and I instantly thought, like, man, I need that to help me in my life because I'm pretty narrow-minded because all I know is East St. Louis, Illinois, 100,000 folks, 99,900 of them look just like me and think very similar, except this one person. And so I made a decision right then and there that I'm going to try to go to college by any means necessary. I wanted to play basketball, but I was horrible and never worked. So I thought I got to get a scholarship. I only thought you can go to scholarship if you could pay for it or you had to get a scholarship. Well, academics, I wasn't strong there. I worked hard, but I just wasn't strong enough, I thought. And I didn't know you could go by taking out loans. I didn't think that existed. And so I played football, and I wasn't a good football player. I was an okay football player. But I said, I'm going to just work hard because I'm heavy, and I'm going to do the best I can to get a scholarship. And fortunately, I got some scholarship offers to go to various colleges. Most of the colleges my friends were going to, because in my high school, we were a pretty good high school football team. Every senior would get a football scholarship. And I was nervous to go to a place where a lot of my friends were at. And so it was a quanky decision for me. And so I decided to go somewhere where none of my friends were at. So I decided to go to Northwest. Jim Red, who was our athletic director at the time, he was very good friends with my coaches. He said this would be a better place for me and I can achieve those things that I want to achieve. And I never had no desires to play in NFL or do anything. I just wanted to trade my athletic ability for an education. And in fact, when I got to college, my goal was I was always nervous I was going to take that scholarship away. And so I graduated in 3 years, not because I was smart, because I was scared I was going to lose that scholarship. I was going to work as fast as I can to get my goal, which was that degree. And so that was my motives for going to college and working hard and knowing that I had to pass every class because I was trying to be on a 2.5-year plan. And done it, because I was so scared that I wouldn't be good enough as an athlete or somebody would come in. Because my friends would tell me, like every year they're recruiting your replacement. So I'm thinking, I'm not very good. The next student they recruit in here is probably going to take my job and I'm going to lose my scholarship. And so it was a lot of things have changed. I know a lot better now. Like, man, I could have took out a loan. I didn't have to work so fast because I didn't have the traditional college experience, of doing a lot of things because I was really just laser focused on I got to get done.
That is crazy.
It is, yeah. 2.5 years to get done. Your 8 semesters, I guess, if you're going year round, you could get that done.
It took me 3.
But still,
but my goal was soon as possible because I didn't want to lose my scholarship.
Yeah. What was it like? So I imagine Maryville, Missouri and East St. Louis are very different geographic areas and very different, makeup. What was it like? You're the VP of culture now. So was there a culture shock when you moved from, East St. Louis, Illinois to sleepy little Maryville, Missouri?
First day, I came to campus. Actually, when I came here, I caught a bus to Kansas City, and here's how goofy I was at the time. Looking at a map, it's not that far from Kansas City to Maryville, looking at a map, right? And I'm used to walking. You know, I lived in a city where you'd walk 30 blocks, 40 blocks, 50 blocks. So Clarence is walking from Kansas City to Maryville with his suitcase. Because that's all I brought with me was a suitcase, a few clothes. Luckily, someone saw me, gave me a ride, a football booster who had picked me up on my visit to Northwest, saw me, turned around and gave me a ride back to Maryville. Thank God. I had walked almost to St. Joseph from Kansas, but my mind, you know, I had never lived in a rural area. Our distance was not that fond to me. And so then when I got here, big culture shop, moved into Dietrich Hall, walked to Walmart, bought me a 13-inch TV, a 12-gauge shotgun, two boxes of bullets, walked back to my dorm, plugged in my TV, walked out to the railroad tracks, shot my shotgun, set it up, made sure it was ready, and put it in my room because it was a culture shock to me because I was very nervous that this might be the last days for Clarence because there were cows next to Dietrich Hall when I was in school here. You know, it was just totally different than the environment that I was used to. Metropolitan area, everybody in my school looked just like me. And no one here looked like me. Mm-hmm. And the students that we have were diverse, were just so, they didn't grow up in a community like mine. So it was such an oddity. Like I didn't grow up around any diversity.
Then in that way, a lot of us are similar, mm-hmm. right?
You're
the
totally
rural
right.
and the urban,
yeah.
the rural students and the urban students are similar in that way.
I was it would be just like a rural, we were the same.
That's crazy. How'd you pick your major?
Well,
since you were laser focused, that seems incredible.
Well, I fell in love with, I met Dr. Newstetter very early on. We're still lifelong friends to this day. He had marched with Martin Luther King, and he had all these posters in his room. And we got into and what attracts me to most people is an argument. We got into an argument, and it really it attracted me to his way of thinking. You know, although I didn't agree with it, but I was just fascinated by it. And I was locked ever since. You know, I took every course for him. You know, up until he retired, we ate dinner every day, every Wednesday. We had a meal at my house every Wednesday. We still talk once a week. You know, his mind was just something I was so intrigued with. How did this guy from Washington, D.C. go to Georgia, walk with King of Jewish descent? You know, his parents experienced the Holocaust. You know, his life was so interesting to me, yet we were so competitive, and we're still that way today. We enjoy the same comedy, the same music, the same authors. You know, we still do things together to this day because and I think our attraction is just each other's minds.
Sociology is a good preparation for law enforcement, though, right?
It really helped me a lot to think about communities. Yes, communities, environments, and just culture in itself, because that's a lot of what law enforcement is: relationships, community. It really was very helpful.
So, as a laser-focused student who's just bulleting his way through college, so I guess we're in career services. So how did you approach your thought of what you were going to do after college?
Well, it really worked out great for me. Joan, it was Ensminger at the time, Snyder, worked in financial aid. Leslie Galbraith was the athletic success person. Together,
I see. I'm putting it together now.
Yes, and together, because of academics and athletics, they had created this award, this national award, reference to athletes who doing well academically, and their advisors. And Dr. Galbraith won it because of the work that we did together. Her and Joan Snyder were best friends. We all went to receive the award together. And Joan Snyder was a career services person right then and there. So she was working with me on what's next, you know, right then and there. And so that's what led me into, and what I was interested in was law enforcement. At one time it was more, so I was interested in criminal justice. because at one time it steered more towards juveniles. And that's what was my first steer in law enforcement. I worked for Juvenile Correctional Center, Illinois, then worked for one in Missouri, then moved into law enforcement at Maryville Public Safety, then at the campus. And so she really opened my eyes to here's some opportunities in that field.
So you went back to Illinois after you graduated?
Yep, for a very brief stint, worked in juvenile. And then what gets most young folks is I had a young lady that I was courting that said, I'm moving to Maryville. You either coming or you not. And so I said, I'm coming.
So you went back to Illinois, then you came back right back to Maryville.
Yep.
And so, okay, so when you came back, then is when you started working with public safety?
I worked in Tarkio, Missouri. They had a juvenile correctional center. I worked there for a year and a half. And then I went over to Maryville Public Safety for 3 to 4 years. Then I came out to the campus.
What was your role? An officer? What was your role at Maryville Public Safety?
I was a police officer at Maryville Public Safety. And then Dr. Bob Bush had hired a new chief of police here at the university. And he had just asked, he would always fail to pay gas at gas stations. And so I would always be working on those days. So I would pay the gas for him, go to his place and remind him he forgot to pay the gas. And he would just laugh and cackle and we would just talk. And he would always reimburse me also. and then he had just stopped me one day and said, hey, we hired a new chief out here and I think she needs your help. The university needs you. You know, and it was like your alma mater asking you, we need you. You know, how do you say no? Mm-hmm. And so it was like, we need you to come out there and help be a leader of a shift and help this other leader out. And so easy, yes. It also, the win for me was I coached football in the Maryville School District as well. And so it allowed me just to work night shifts so I could continue coaching and helping out kids. Because my focus was really on juveniles at that time and intersecting with that work, although I was a police officer. And so then it just blossomed from there.
So the work of either in a corrections facility or as a police officer, talk to us a little bit about what you do. Well, I'm sure it's different every day, right?
Yeah, and truly, we're really in the people business. As a police officer, we're in the people business. The number one thing that you're going to do is communicate. And what I've learned is I love to hire folks who are in communication, education, anything other than criminal justice, because that's our strength. We could teach you how to use the law in an enforcement manner. What we need is people who can communicate, connect, have high empathy. And that's what we do every day is what my typical day exists of. I'm up early, I'm reading articles, I'm kind of doing an environmental scan. I get all of this data sent to me by different bureaus, like Missouri Police Chiefs Association, International Chiefs of Police. I'll read through all those series of articles to try to make connections about what's going on in our environment. How should we be shaping our response? And I'll use some examples that occurred recently. As we know, the case that is going on this week against Chauvin in Minnesota. Troy Brady probably would tell you over the weekend, he received an email from me outlining, here's some things that's going on at the university. Here's some things that we're doing and some actions we need you all to take to help mitigate our risk that we foresee possibly going on with, we could have protests, we can have students responding with trauma. We know our mental health cases are up. And so I'm trying to monitor those things. I'm also trying to make sure we build capacity in our people. But am I coming into work to check on the folks who work night shift, day shift, evening shift, see how they're doing? Because when they're doing all of these, our check well-beings are a little bit out of control. A check well-being is a mental health call for a police officer. Typical agency probably maybe does one of those a week. We're doing about 7 of those a day. And so, but that takes a toll and a secondary impact on that police officer. Hearing all of that pain in Clarence's lens is not normal, nor are police officers built for that. They have to be a little bit type A to be successful in their work, although have high empathy. But you can wear them out pretty quickly with all the empathy, because an officer will have to listen to someone who is at their lowest low, be very empathetic, take that person to the hospital to get additional help or not, talk with a survivor of a sexual assault, be extremely empathetic, connecting, but then 2 minutes later, dealing with someone who is drunk and obnoxious, trying to poke their eye out with a pencil. So you're going from all of these different levels, yet you have to do all of that with respect and dignity, and you can't have a bad day. And so sometimes I'm coming in just to relieve them, say, sit, close your eyes, take a bite, take a drink, take a walk, as well as walk with them just to assess them. Because the number one thing we can give to our people is time to sit and talk with them, just to listen and learn and understand what's going on. Sometimes it's just a release. Some of them just need to be left alone. But then the only way I can know that is I have to sit with them to learn that. And so I'm trying to make sure that I'm a resource multiplier for those officers. And then we have our daily work, reviewing all of the reports that we get every day, the criminal reports, just the non-criminal reports, making sure that we're following back up with the victims that we've had of crime, because we pride ourselves on communication. So we make sure that all of our officers, or I'm following up with folks form. Typically, we're in a university setting, so we have a lot of meetings as well. And they're very productive. Like I really enjoy them. I am invigorated by a lot of the things that we get done here as a university, as an institution. And then some part of their day, we're taking complaints also. Whether it be you announce a date, we're going to have a day off, and some people are excited and some people are not, but you got to listen to all of them, because we have a fascinating culture and something very special that we don't give enough credit for. And, we all give out that engagement survey, and we'll always hear, I felt like I couldn't share my thoughts. Clarence is going to say a little bit of that is BS, because he'll get calls, emails, texts with everybody sharing their thoughts. I'm thinking like, what? But that's really good though, because we have a culture where folks can share their voice. There's not going to be any retaliation or anything for it, and I think that's good. I think that's healthy. I love when students confront us. They do a lot on social media, like, we think this is wrong. We'll invite them in and say, come in and help us solve the problem. We'll map out the problem, and what we'll do is say, let's try it. We're not afraid to try it, and we're not afraid to say we're wrong, because we do make mistakes, and we'll move together. We'll move together. And then sometimes you guys will see where we'll say, nope, this is what we're doing. We're going to continue down this path. Because sometimes we believe we're unequivocally right for that moment, and sometimes it's just got to happen that way. But we're always going to be open for the conversation. And so a typical day is just a lot of those things. And an old police officer once told me this when I first started. He said, police work is about 85% sure boredom. Then it's 15% just crazy excitement. He says you have to be prepared for that 85%,
For both
you're
aspects
dealing with
of
just
it.
a lot of routine calls. Someone's upset, like you would be amazed at what people will report. I went to my room this morning. I opened my notebook, and there was a piece of paper that was ripped out. I think it happened in my math class. I don't know who did it. Was there anything of value on that paper? Nope, but I think someone stole a sheet of paper. Okay, you have to handle that at the same level of empathy and care as what you're doing someone who's experienced a physical assault, or because it's important to that individual. And a lot of times you're thinking like, come on now, get on out of here with that. But you can't respond that way.
Let's back up a little bit. So this is an interesting, you mentioned bringing students in and saying, let's solve this problem together. And so I was thinking there, as I was hearing the story of Clarence walking from Kansas City to St. Joe, because when I went to school here as an undergrad, there was no public transportation. So can you talk about safe rides maybe a little bit?
Yep, totally a student-driven idea. We were very fortunate that we built some relationships, and we had a lot of people who helped us. There was a person who worked in student involvement named Brian Van Alsdale. Luckily, we had hit it off. I think he may have had a flat tire when he first moved here. We changed his tire, so he kind of had a liking to us. And he says, would you come out to this alcohol summit in a police form to make sure these kids are not drinking? And we said, we won't do that. We want to come out and be involved, and we don't want to give answers. We just want to listen. And boy, it was ingenious. We just listened. Students enjoyed it, asked us a few questions, but mainly stayed clear of us and just shared information amongst their group. A month from there, they come up with the idea that we should have this transportation service that moves students around to lower DWIs. Because at that time, we averaged 3 fatalities a year of our college students within the city limits of Maryville. They pitched the idea. They asked some other offices to do it. Didn't happen. They came to us last and said, would you do it? This is crazy for a police department to do because you should be arresting people. We said, we'll do it. We'll do it as a pilot. We made the pitch to the institution. We ran it as a pilot. It has blown up since then. We did 150 transportations in that first piloted semester. Now we do about 15,000 a year. We haven't had a fatality accident from a university student driving a vehicle impaired since we've had the system. We lowered DWIs by 67%. It feels good when our students say, if you drive impaired, you should get arrested, because we have a service there that's out there driving around. I don't care how long you got to wait. Use that service because it's going to get you somewhere safely. And the most profound thing to me is that those are students' ideas. And we love those ideas when they come in and they work. Like our social media was a student idea. Students drove that whole process. They built the whole platform. They do all of the work. Most of the things that we've done has always been in a team approach and students' idea. When I think of Pizza and Police, Cocoa with the Pope, those are all student ideas that said, we think you should be doing this and this is how you should be doing it. And we just say, let's give it a try. And we've done a lot of them that haven't worked. A lot of people think everything you do turns to gold. Like most of it never worked.
But you don't see those ugly failures. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't know the story. I remember one time we gave away free, we put on every parking ticket, you got 10% off at the Union. Drastic failure. That was the last idea I had. I've never pitched another idea. Drastic failure.
One of the things that's always stood out to me about University Police at Northwest is, you guys, you think of police and you think of responding to crimes and not necessarily the most popular department on campus. I'd say UPD is one of the most popular departments on campus. Has that been something that was it that way when you came in, or is that something that's been built over time where you have that goodwill of the community?
But I think it's something that we really worked hard to build, and we never tried to do it to be, our goal was never to be popular. We just wanted to create a way that students would have access, that we would get reports of sexual assault, violence, because I think at Northwest, I believe, I don't have the exact data, but I believe we have the highest number of sexual assault. I believe that's because of the comfort level of our survivors. But we're still not getting enough, because we know 1 in 5 young women between the age of 18 and 24 are sexually assaulted. We're not getting 700 and some reports. We're getting 7 to 15. But I think because students feel comfortable, because they feel like they have access to us, and they feel like they have voice, and that we're going to be confidential. That's what we're really trying to build with our students. And if what I've had to learn to adjust and accept is that if it means that we have to be popular, that's okay, because I think Mark Hornicle will tell you, I had him do a study in his doc class a year ago because I wanted to get rid of social media. It was just driving me bonkers. And I thought folks wanted us to be more entertaining than what we were helpful. And so I wanted to get rid of the whole thing. Well, through the course of his study, what he found is folks thought it was a connection. It was a positive. It did give them access. And so we couldn't get rid of it, but it's really working in the way that it should be. And it's something that's really helped me, because it's not something that I'm naturally inclined to do. Like a lot of times I'm not a big communicator, but it's forced me to think about communication in a whole different way, and how we're communicating messaging out and how we're responding to those that we serve.
And how people that you're tweeting, but people are actually feeling a connection from your tweeting from your phone. That's crazy.
Yes,
like the leverage of that.
Yes. And we've done some things early, like we do a lot of cookouts at my house with students where we'll do focus groups. We'll have 20 to 50 students out there, and we'll do a fish fry or a barbecue. and we'll be picking their mind on what's next. And you guys work with students also. We have 52 student employees that work out of UPD. So it's such a pleasure to be, because those folks give us tons of insights on here's what you shouldn't be doing, here's what you should be doing. Here's what that means when you say that word. Oh, I didn't know that had a triple meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we hear that all the time.
Absolutely.
It's scary.
Let's go back to your education. So you're working on campus, you're a police officer, UPD. Why did you go back and get a master's degree?
Yeah, well, I did. I'll talk about my master's and my doctorate because I'm not as proud of my master's as I am my doctorate. But I'm not. I'm proud of my doctorate because of the reason I got it. But I don't want to think of it as vanity because I think everybody's on their own journey and you learn what you want to learn when you want to learn. I'm just kind of a slow learner. And I think I've shared this with you before. Before I got my doctorate, I didn't really understand what critical thought was or learning was. It was the greatest experience for me in my life, educational experience. My master's, I really got it because when I worked at the university, I didn't know enough about higher ed. Everyone that I worked with had a master's degree except me. I felt like people explained things differently. I couldn't make a connection. I felt a little bit out of a place. So a lot of it was cause of self-doubt, not enough inspiration in me. So I did it a little bit for the wrong reasons. I wish I would have did it for the learning because I didn't. And so never do anything that's not going to be for the learning because I missed some opportunities there. But my doctorate degree, I did it pure for the learning. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be sharper for the people we serve, for the people that report directly to me, because I believe every day I have to be better to serve those that I have to work with. And so everybody that was reporting to me had a master's degree, and they're so sharp and so smart and can figure things out. So I said, Clarence got to get a lot better, unless Clarence is replaceable. And I have to be, then how am I going to be able to pour into them without knowing some additional information also? And so, it was a greatest learning experience I've ever had in my life. And I think you could do it with anything. I think if I would have had a different thought process for my master's, I could have had the same thing. You know, I know I didn't have that for my bachelor's because I was on a race. And my master's was more, man, I don't fit in, so let me get this so I could be more like you. And I didn't get the learning. But my doctorate was all for the learning, and I'm still learning from it today. You know, like it has been tremendous for me as an individual. I learned so much about me and so much just about different concepts, leadership, higher education, all types of things, policies, analysis, processes. It's really helped me in my life in every step of the way.
Well, and you mentioned the master's doing it for the wrong reasons, but I think here, knowing you and then knowing kind of the mystique of Clarence on campus, you're almost a Bobby Bearcat level figure on campus to a lot of us. I mean, really, because you've been around for a long time. It's rare that people run towards the university police chief to talk to them instead of away from them. And that's something that happens. But hearing the fact that, you got your master's because basically you had imposter syndrome.
Yes, sir.
We all feel that. We work with a lot of students who are either getting ready to join the workforce or just join the workforce, and they are struggling with that. So to hear that this happens to everybody, even, someone who has been around for a long time and is, an institutional kind of pillar, it happens to all of us. So I think that's really valuable for students to hear that, that even Clarence has felt that sometimes. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's very, wrong reasons.
So you talk a lot about learning. You developed your critical thought process. Out of that doctoral experience, what do you think was a real crisp key point maybe that you could bring home about a lot of people don't have doctoral degrees. Mm-hmm. So if you are a student maybe, or someone with a master's degree, maybe considering doing a doctoral program, like what key takeaway in your experience with that what advice would you give them? What key takeaway would you express to them?
Well, I would say for any learning, I would say if you went into your bachelor's with just an open mind and you wanted to just purely, like I would say, lose yourself in the learning and just truly read and consume everything and think about it and try to think about it from someone else's perspective. Meet with people who are different than you and hear their perspective, because you'll be like, ooh, I never thought of that. I didn't even read that word. Go back and re-examine it and just take your time and enjoy the process. Because when I've taken my time, did the reading, read it twice, 3 times, boy, it's beautiful. Like, it gets me fired up right now. And that's what I did in my doctoral experience. But I have seen some folks, what I love is I see folks doing it in their bachelor's. That's why I know most folks are I'm always trying to learn because I don't want to be left behind. And I'm a late learner. Most folks know this in their bachelor's, and that's why they're so smart. But the people we're hiring are smarter than us. We have to keep learning so that we can keep motivating them and giving them experiences. But I think if you do it at any level of learning, unfortunately for me, it happened at my doctorate level. But what it challenged me with is I'm still learning today. I took a Six Sigma course. I still talk with Dr. Newsteller, and we'll do book reviews together. I still, because I don't never want to. The minute I'm done learning, I probably should just quit working, because you're going to be stale. You should always be willing to try and do new things. You got to be willing to fail. That's why you need. And then we have to create places where it's safe to fail also. Don't put someone in the project where it's unsafe to fail for their first or second time, but we have to create projects where folks can fail safe and fail forward. And so, because we got to be there to pick them up and help get them right back on their feet, because they're going to help us do something great. But I just love learning.
When you're hiring someone, what do you look for?
Well, right now, I'm big on empathy. I want someone who is high in empathy, who can put themselves in other shoes, who could give grace. That's the number one trait I'm looking for. I'm also looking for folks who are lifelong learners, who are willing to learn and accept information. Something we call intellectual humility also. I want someone who can accept when they're wrong and accept someone else has superior information and carry it through. That's big for me, that you run into that with a lot of type A folks, which law enforcement brings about. This is my way, it's the only way. What they have to be able to do is accept that when someone else telling them something, it's the best information, and they go from there. I also look for people who can communicate. You have to be able to talk, express yourself, give answers that have some sort of breadth and depth to it. Because what I found in police officers, those folks who don't have those skill sets struggle in our environment here and will struggle with our leadership. And typical other leaders, I look for those same things, but a little bit, because the folks who I work with now, like in HR and IR, they're going to have to be a subject matter expert, because I'm not in those fields. So they're going to have those same skill sets. They're going to have to bring some subject matter expertise to that field also, because the only thing I'm going to be good for is I maybe can help define some problems, so you can go run with them. I could help answer some questions, and I can clear paths for you. But if you want me to figure out the integration policy, it's going to be a massive failure.
We haven't talked too much here about being VP of culture, but what is that? Your role as that, and role as police chief. So how do you view your role as VP of culture?
Well, I think it's really still in the people business, connecting folks, connecting people, developing people, creating engagement for our campus, codifying some processes. And really, I believe today, really, we've been fermenting for a while around culture. And the culture team is our police personnel, Egon and Barkus. And today, we did some beautiful work. At our team meeting, we talked about codifying some processes that we do that we're going to share throughout the entire institution, and they're going to be coming hopefully within the next 30 days. And it's going to help us just with communication. Like, we saw some communication errors that we made through our announcement, and some pathways that we've done things, and we're going to try to clean that up. Like, here's what we know that's successful. When COVID hit us as a culture team, what we did was we advised senior leadership to have meetings with the SLT, the Executive Staff Council, the exec of Faculty Senate, our leadership forum, and then we would do our Board of Regents, then we would do a campus announcement. We didn't do that with this, but we just did this with budget. Why would we go over budget in such detail? We won't trust folks with a day off. You know what I mean? Like, I think they can keep it confidential. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it just makes you question what you're trying to do and why. Because a lot of times we were thinking, well, it's going to be a great surprise. So I get it. It was done with kindness, but does it throw off things? So how do we codify a process and publish it? Because that's what builds culture also, that folks know this is the process. And so if it's not in the process and we didn't communicate, so well, what in the process? So maybe we improve the process. They're done being angry at Clarence or someone else. We all had an opportunity to infuse that in the process. And so to me, that's beautiful work, because it's going to help us as a campus, a culture, and here's how we're going to communicate things. And that's our biggest failure that's what causes the most anxiety, I believe, in failure. A lot of times it's not the salary, it's not this, it's not that, it's how everything's communicated. And if we can at least publish, here's how, we're still going to get it wrong, but we're always going to be able to go back and improve our process. And so that's why I think today was just beautiful. It was 3 folks in the room just vibing, throwing some stuff on the whiteboard. And now we have something that we can give out to our entire campus community and say, help us.
And that's
a starting block.
It's an example of that very same thing that you said, I might be wrong, that humility, right?
Oh.
Like, this was the intent. We threw it out with that intent. But now, we've gotten the feedback. Oh, maybe that wasn't the best idea. So now we're going to go toward improving the process.
Yep. And that's just what we're going to do. We're going to codify it, and everybody should have it, so then we can, because I guarantee you, we're all going to agree to something, and I guarantee you we're going to miss something.
Yep. We're running out of time for you here, Clarence. But what does it mean for you to be a Bearcat?
Oh, it just means, it means a lot to me. It just means being someone that is, I'll say being a Bearcat is showing pride, it's connecting with others, it's practicing civility, it's being a lifelong learner, and it's caring about your feather Bearcats across our campus in our community. I think our president wrote that 3 or 4 years ago about being a Bearcat. And so I hate to be cliche, but I really think about that a lot. And the reason that it connects a lot to me is this summer, we had a racial incident around the George Floyd, and our students reminded us of, this is what it means to be a Bearcat. And so that has stayed with me since that moment, that being a Bearcat is something very special, something none of us should take lightly. And I want to make sure that I'm practicing those all the time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you both.
So here's your flat plane where you can just run. I've been giving all my guests a little plateau at the end to just share what's on their mind, share what's on their heart, share about what's coming in the future. There you go, Clarence, run.
Oh, shucks. Well, you just hit me with a big question. I think a lot's going on in the future. What's in front of me right now is just our institutional budget. I think we have to get that solidified and and work with our Board of Regents to find what we're going to improve or what we're not. And so that's really taking on my mind right now. But also, I feel really just fortunate. This morning's activity just with the culture team was such tremendous. I really don't have anything coming forward, so the flat plane is going to sound a little different to me. I just really love being in conversations and doing work where everyone's vibing and you trying to produce something. And even if it's you go back and change it, well, it sure felt good. Like I love doing things that are meaningful. And a lot of times in my day, I'm doing some just work. And I don't like that. I love to be able to do those things that are meaningful. And what I did this morning was, that was beautiful.
Well, we certainly
Clarence-
think the work you're doing is very meaningful. So thank you for
Yes.
everything you've
Thank
done
you
for
so much
Northwest
for
over the years
sharing.
and continue to do too. So
No, thank you. Thank you both.
All right. We have appreciated you having you on our podcast as a guest. So thank
Well, I
you for
appreciate
taking
you
the time.
guys. Thank you.
all right. Well, that will do it for this season of Behind the Bearcat. And we'll talk to you next time. Hey
Okay.
guys, we hope you enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to follow on your podcast platform of choice and on YouTube. Also, click the little notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an upload. And you can follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and we have a LinkedIn page.